Greetings. Hi, this is Stan Houston, and this is the late Monday, even Monday evening edition of Interesting Times. And we usually put our program on later in the day because we know that you had a busy Monday getting ready to meet the marketplace in this challenging week and during these challenging times. And so hopefully a part of the pressure of the day is gone, and perhaps you can even learn something and perhaps be inspired by something here later in the Monday afternoon, early evening. By the way, did you notice that new sounder? Some of you might have. Now, what that is something from my youth, which I recovered. Now, that is the Morse code for a ham radio. That's the Morse code for being an amateur radio operator. And if you know your Morse code, you know that is a CQ, CQ, CQ. It was that Morse code, those two letters. And what that meant is, I want to talk to somebody. I just want to talk to somebody. I'm calling all stations, calling anybody out there. Please, I'd like to talk to you. And that's a good thing. If you are just simply trying to build relationships, say, you know what, you're important enough and I'd like to talk to you. So this is the broadcast CQ. And of course, from time to time, I'll play it. And by the way, I'm still looking for you to create a sounder, perhaps something that you would use in your business or in your advertising. And if it's good enough and works with our agenda, we'll be glad to use that from time to time, and every time we do, we'll tell you and we'll tell the world all about you and your story of why you invented that specific sounder. So CQ, CQ, CQ. Calling, please listen. Program, you read it right. A single photo can change the world. I know because I took one that did. Now, that's not me. That's not me. What it is, it's a quote from the guy I'm going to talk about today. His name is Nick Ute, and he's a retired photographer. And can a photograph help end a war? And so if you'll hang in there with me, I'm going to talk about the single photo that changed the world, and what it meant to him, and what it even might mean to you today. That's the agenda for this evening. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas and begins right now. And here we begin, and this is from Nick. Can a photograph help end a war? Pictures from Ukraine by combat photographers, including contract photographer James Nechtui and Associated Press photojournalists Filipe Dana, Mitslav Chernov, and Yevgeny Maloteka, have brought to light the horrific consequences of Russia's invasion and the unconscionable treatment of innocent civilians. Now, many of us have seen those photos. 50 years ago, I was in the same position as those photographers working for the Associated Press in Vietnam. I was inspired to become a photojournalist by my brother, who worked at the AP before I did, and whose mentor was the great Horst Voss. Now, my brother taught me how to use cameras before he died covering a battle. He told me, I hope one day you have a picture that will stop the war. Horst strongly objected when I decided to follow in my father's footsteps. He said he did not want to have to call my mother to say that a second son had died. I told him that I understood the risk and that it was my choice. I was inspired by my brother's belief that photography can serve the cause of social justice. But I didn't know if one photo could have the power he suggested. Today, many credit my photo, called Napalm Girl, for hastening an end to the Vietnam War. What I know for sure is that it depicts the absolute horrors of war, defined by a young girl running naked amid destruction and death. Okay, pause. Many of you know which photo I'm talking about. It's a radio program, but I think you remember seeing it, if you had any recollection of those times, and even it has made history. And what it was just that. It was a horrific picture of a young girl, stripped naked, clothes burned off, who was running away because her village had been napalmed by the American bombers, and she was running away. Okay, now he continues his story. He says this: on June 7th, 1972, I learned about fighting taking place in Trang Bang, a small village roughly 30 miles northwest of Saigon. I still have vivid memories of my drive the next morning to Trang Bang, seeing rows of bodies by the side of the road and hundreds of refugees fleeing the area. I eventually arrived at a village destroyed by days of airstrikes. The residents were so tired of the constant battles they fled their village to seek refuge on the streets, under bridges, or wherever they could find even a moment of calm. By midday, I had the photos I thought I needed. I was preparing to leave when I saw a South Vietnamese soldier drop a yellow smoke bomb, which served as a target signal near a group of buildings. I picked up my camera, and a few seconds later captured the image of a plane dropping 4 napalm bombs on the village. When the bombs exploded, we didn't know if anyone had been injured. All morning the village had seemed empty, but many people were hiding inside the village temple. As we came closer, we saw people fleeing the napalm. I was horrified when I saw a woman with her left leg badly burned. I can still see so vividly the old woman carrying a baby who died in front of my camera, and another woman carrying a small child with his skin coming off. Then I heard a child screaming, "Nang Qua! Nang Qua! Too hot! Too hot!" I looked through my Leica viewfinder to see a young girl who had pulled off her burning clothes as was running toward me. I started taking pictures of her. Then she yelled to her brother that she thought she was dying and wanted some water. I instantly put my camera down so I could help her. I knew that was more important than taking more photos. I took my canteen for her to drink and poured water on her body to cool off, but it created more pain for her. I didn't know that when people get burned so badly, you're not supposed to put water on them. Still in shock and amid the confusion of everyone screaming, I put all the kids into the AP van. I drove them to Chu Chai Hospital since it was closest to Trang Bang. The girl kept crying and screaming, "I'm dying, I'm dying." I'm sure she was going to die in my van. At the hospital, I learned that her name was Phan Thi Kim Phuc. She had suffered third-degree burns on 30% of her body. The doctors were overwhelmed by the huge numbers of wounded soldiers and civilians already there. They initially refused to admit her and told me to bring her to the larger Saigon hospital, but I knew she would die if she did not get immediate help. I showed them my press badge and said, "If one of them dies, I will make sure the world knows, the whole world knows." Then they brought Kim Phuc inside. I never regretted my decision. Wow. Now, I would encourage you to read the whole article. You can Google it, find it out there. And what is the case is that then later in life, he was able to meet that girl. And then much later in life, he's become a good friend to her. And now she's living in Canada, obviously a middle-aged woman by now almost, has had children and perhaps grandchildren, and is living a good life. And obviously, his picture and his threat to tell the world probably saved her life. Isn't that important to realize? Because I've oftentimes said, please keep in mind that the things that are on the news are usually not that important. If you really want to know what is important in life, it's probably being done by ordinary people who are not celebrities and who are not power politicians or hotshot businessmen, but men and women simply living their lives out with purpose, poise, confidence, direction, and they overcome their fears to do something certainly out of the ordinary. That's certainly a story of that, and so I wanted to share it with you, but I also want to bring it home to you. Again, one picture, and he's right, that one picture so powerfully changed some of the people's perceptions, whether you were for the war or against the war. It had to end. We got to bring this to an end somehow. And of course, the Vietnam War continues to be a source of pain and sorrow for many of us, because that's what war does. Yeah. And we saw some of that horror in the picture of that little napalm girl. Well, that's enough for Monday, but no, I'm going to take a few more minutes, and I'm going to encourage you to do something that you can do that might someday do just about the same thing. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas. We are doing this because we want you, because we believe you are good and you have good things to say, and we want you to have ideas so that you can have some influence, some impact, some good things come into your life, and perhaps in some way you can change your world, and maybe, who knows, as our colleague here did, he's a fellow communicator, change the world. We'll be back. So I hope that some of you soon will be looking the story up. And, of course, I'll give you a little hint here. Again, it's Nick Ut, N-I-C-K-U-T. He's now retired. And the article is, "A Single Photo Can Change the World. I know because I took one that did." There you go. Right now, many of you know that one of the things Interesting Ideas is all about is to help you become one of the 3% of the population who know who they are, what they're called to do in life, what their purpose is, what their mission is, to have an incredible interest in interesting people and in interesting ideas, and to have something that makes you interesting too. I'm encouraging you to do a podcast and to start, taking a picture, doing a video, doing a podcast, and see what happens. Now, I know for sure that most of the podcasts I do, they're maybe helpful for a few people for a little bit. But the reason I keep doing them is I know that the one that I least suspect may totally affect somebody profoundly. It may be just the one thing that changes their life. And that they might find me some years up in the past and say, if they meet me and say, "Stan, it's that radio program you did that caused me to do this," and see what happened. Now, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I know that it might because it has happened to me in the past. And so I encourage you, I share my heart, mind, soul, and spirit, and some of the things that I've learned as simply an overeducated disc jockey. I want to share them with people, knowing that there is a possibility that some program, and one of the most significant programs that supposedly changed the life of a person, I remember when I walked away from it, I shook my head and said, oh my goodness, that's my bad one for this month. I didn't think it went very well. I didn't think it was very good. And that was the one that profoundly affected someone very deeply. So that's my word for these 15 minutes on a Monday evening. I do want to help you. First of all, I can help you build your business and become a world-class entrepreneur. I really believe that. And I can also help you become a world-class podcast broadcaster. And so that you can share your wisdom, insight, and truth, tell your story, and perhaps be the same kind of person who might years from now say, a single radio program can change the world. I know, because I did one that did. Let's hope that happens for all of us from time to time. Best and blessings to you, because you always close with a benediction. I'm Stan for Interesting Ideas. We'll see you again around the horn, around the turn this week, and let's see where it takes us. Bye for now.